You know, sometimes you only really appreciate what you've got when it's gone. And one example of that are the Bose stores. I wasn't aware that they disappeared until last year. And yet they've been gone for quite a while before then. Back in 2020, the decision was made to shut all the Bose stores in the UK, the US, Europe, Japan and Australia. And yet it was only in 2023 when I was walking through Liverpool, I was shooting a little bit to camera to put as an extra on Patreon. I thought it might be interesting to take a look at the refurb section at the back of the Bose store to see if there were any bargains to be had. But I couldn't find the shop. It wasn't where I last left it. So, of course, when I got home, I had a look to see what had happened to the Liverpool Bose store. Perhaps they'd moved to a different location, but no, all the stores had closed. In fact, that one had closed before that 2020 date. It shows you how up-to-date I was. The other Bose store that I used to quite like going to every now and then, every few years, was the one at the York Designer outlet. I'm not exactly their #1 customer. Did buy something from them once though. I bought the QC25 headphones back in 2014. Noise cancelling headphones. They were with a wire back then, of course, not Bluetooth. And it was like a revelation. It could blank out all the noise of the train on the incredibly annoying commute to work. Just put those on, close your eyes. You could just pretend you weren't there. It kept my sanity. They cost a lot of money though. A lot of money for me at the time. And it was barely something I could afford. Proved worthwhile, but 11 months and 3 weeks in, I think, after having them, I was going to work in the morning, the left ear cut out. So I went into the Bose shop at lunchtime in Manchester. Within 5 minutes, I had a brand new pair and I walked out the shop with them and I could use them on the way home. So that was amazing service, I thought, at the time, and the kind of thing, of course, you don't get without a shop. So the shops are gone. But then again, when I think about it, I probably cost them money. I bought one set of headphones from them that they ended up replacing for me. And a lot of other times I've just been wandering around in the shops, effectively like kicking tyres. So, you know, maybe I understand why they shut all the shops down, but still, a bit of a loss. But the reason I'm mentioning all this is because every time you went in a Bose store, there was one thing you could guarantee would be there: the Wave CD radio. All the time, as far back as I can remember, there was always the ability to buy yourself a Bose Wave. Now, well, they haven't been around forever. They had been on the market for quite some time. Popular Science magazine ran a feature on the Bose acoustic wave system in April 1985, shortly after the first product had been launched. The article explained how Bose had started working on the technology back in 1970. The acoustic wave music system featured an AM/FM radio and cassette player and cost $649 US. These systems were able to produce more powerful bass than the equivalently sized traditional style speaker by routing the sound through a series of folded tubes or a waveguide. A speaker driver precisely positioned within this waveguide develops resonances that enable the system to produce a wider range of bass frequencies, and this technology won some Best Invention awards for Dr. Bose and his team at the time. Now, in 1993, the range expanded with the introduction of a smaller alarm clock radio style device, and then both sizes of player went through multiple upgrades over the years, culminating in the Bose Wave SoundTouch System 4, which was discontinued here in the UK back in 2019. Now, whilst I very much enjoyed my Bose headphones, in fact I've still got some round here somewhere, the latest model of the QC range, and I very much appreciate them, it's really my only experience with the brand, the headphones. And I noticed over the years the hi-fi aficionados in forums would often repeat the trite phrase, no highs, no lows, must be Bose. They'd learnt to parrot this little epithet as though it was like something really clever, you know, because they'd learnt a little thing they could type in any time anyone mentioned Bose. I haven't really had any experience with the equipment. I'm not the kind of person that likes to make my mind up about something without experiencing it for myself, if at all possible. So I thought, I'm going to go and buy myself a Bose CD radio. These things were discontinued, it seems, round about the same time they shut all the stores. So I've got the last in the range. It's a refurb from a specialist guy on eBay. Let's try this out. Let me have my first experience with one of these Bose Wave devices and see if they really were as good as Bose were making out, or if they really are as bad as everyone else makes out. Now, it's actually a few months since I bought this, so I'm struggling to remember all the details about it. I know that it's a main unit, and then in addition to that, there's another section that attaches to it. As you can see, this one's got its original packaging. That was something that appealed to me, just for the making of the video, so I can show you what one of these would have looked like if you'd have bought one back when they were available new. Okay, so the model I've got is the Wave SoundTouch Music System 4. This accepts a CD and also connects up to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This is a used example, but I think it's in very good condition. So effectively what I'm doing here is what I could have done maybe 10 or so years ago, and pick one of these up in the shops, open up the box and set it up. So I'm having an experience which I missed out on. The SoundTouch pedestal, this is the part which enables you to connect up to your network. I don't know if this is also the section that contains the Bluetooth connectivity or if that's in the main unit, but here's the device that the other part sits on, and as you can see, it connects up via this cable here at the back. So let's pop it all together and see what we've got. Okay, so you can see on this SoundTouch pedestal, we've got the one cable connecting up to the main unit. That's labelled as Bose link. And then we've got a button, a light, Ethernet port, micro USB, full-size USB, and a 3.5mm that's labelled up as service. On the main unit, that's where your power goes in. We've got the DAB and FM antennas. Now notice they're unusual sockets, but we've got this adapter to go up to a normal coax. And then we've got auxiliary in and headphone out. Now, as far as the rest of the stuff inside the box, we've got the lead I've just shown you, the coax to 3.5mm. We've got the remote control, which has a nice size to it, larger than I expected. Rubberized top plate here with buttons that protrude slightly. Nice feel to it, really. USB lead, micro USB on that end, showing the device's age a little bit. A 3.5mm patch lead for the auxiliary port, no doubt. The power lead. A CD, which seems to be an introduction to the system with various different tracks on it, which I think is a nice little feature. You can start off, even if you haven't got any CDs, with this one, just to get a good feel for the system. And then look at the manual. I mean, obviously that's not just in English, but that's a pretty chunky manual. I don't think I've ever had a thicker manual for a smaller device than this. I've just realised I'm missing a lead. I'm going to have to look through the box again just in case it is in there. But you see how we've got a socket for DAB and FM? Well, this adapter I showed you, that's got a 3.5mm connector on the end, and that fits in the FM, but not in the DAB. That looks like a 2.5mm. So I can connect up an FM antenna, but at the moment I can't connect up a DAB. I'm just going to have a good look through to check I haven't missed it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to find a 2.5mm to coax adapter, which is going to be a bit of a strange thing to go looking for. Yeah, looking through the manual, here's everything that was included when it was new, and the bit that I'm missing out on is a 2.5mm antenna. So rather than it being an adapter like that, it's the full antenna for DAB. Interesting that they're using a separate DAB and FM antenna, but I'm going to have to go looking for one of these before I can use a DAB. So I'll do that in a minute, but I think first we should just try playing a CD in this thing. Right, I'm going to flip the power switch at the plug end and see if this thing comes on. Oh, there we go, I've got the time. Please wait. Nice clear display. It's segmented the text, so you won't get an awful lot of information on there, but it is easy to read from across the room, which I suppose is what they were going for. By the way, it isn't 8:45 p.m. That'll no doubt update itself when it's connected up to the radio. So I need to find an FM antenna in a moment, but I think the first thing is switch it on, stick a disc in, see what this sounds like. My first experience with the Bose Wave technology. It actually says here, play the CD at volume level of 80 to 85. Sit back, take 15 minutes, and we believe you'll discover that what you own is no ordinary music system. Okay, let's carry on.
But there are places in the heart only music can touch.
Now that was an excellent demo, a brilliant idea, because it really did show off the system properly. It's only 15 minutes long, just got a few tracks on it, but one thing it mentions here, which is very important at the end, it says, this demonstration CD may seem to sound softer than commercial CDs you own. The recordings on this demo CD were produced with no dynamic range compression. This means the natural dynamics of these performances have been preserved, allowing a wider spectrum of sound. Simply adjust the volume and enjoy. Don't you wish that all CDs were like that? 2015 from Bose, so relatively recent, really. That really did serve to give any new owner a good first impression. Now you'll notice I also managed to set the time. I didn't refer back to the manual, I just played around with the buttons. There aren't too many settings in this, so it's quite easy to do anything. We've got a couple of different alarms we could have in here, which you can of course use this really as a bedside alarm clock. I think that might be where many people use these. Now I managed to resolve my antenna issue by buying this 2.5mm to F-plug adapter on eBay. Of course you could make your own, but I was just being lazy. However, you might not need one at all, because it depends upon how strong the signal is where you are, but you could get by without any antennas plugged in the back. I'll just demonstrate. We're on Radio 6 Music here at the moment, and once it comes on I'll probably have to mute it to avoid content matches. Let's just get the volume down there. But if I hold down the play mode button, you'll see the signal strength indicator appears on the screen, and at the moment it's saying 98, very good, even though my antenna isn't plugged in. Now that very much depends upon where you place your power lead, because the power lead is functioning as an antenna. So if you can get your power lead in the right position in your house, you won't need a antenna on this one. And as you can see there, we're getting 93 out of 100, but if I plug this thing in, I'm going to get 100 out of 100. So if you can plug an antenna in, definitely better to do that. However, you can get by without if you want. Oh, and I should mention that while it was inconvenient having to source this unusual antenna connector, the benefits of it immediately became obvious once I needed to move the unit to another location. Unplugging and plugging in jack plugs is a heck of a lot easier than messing around with coax and F-plug connectors. Okay, now let me go through the capabilities, the different kinds of audio that it's capable of playing, and we'll break this down into 3 different bits for the 3 different parts of the device. We've got the top section, the wireless section in the middle, and then the ones that are capable of being played if you use the app. So starting off with this top section, this is a CD and radio. Your radio is AM, FM, and in the case of the one here in the UK, DAB. That's the digital radio standard, but also DAB+. So we're bang up to date as far as that goes. And as far as the CD player, well, it's just a regular CD. It's not SACD or anything like that, but it will play MP3 CDs as well. Not to any other kinds of audio files, just MP3 CDs or your regular CDs. If you're playing the MP3 ones, the text will come through from the ID3 tags and show on the display on the front here. But as far as the regular CD player goes, unfortunately, it doesn't support CD text, which isn't entirely unsurprising, but it's always a feature that I like to see whenever I've got an alphanumeric display. But in the case of this one, no, just your regular track numbers and things. So moving down to the wireless unit below, well, that adds on Bluetooth capabilities as well as AirPlay. And it actually got an update to support AirPlay 2. So you can send your audio across to this device, and again, the track information from whatever you're playing will display on the screen on the front here. And then finally, what you can do through the app. Well, as far as streaming music services go, you've got Spotify, Deezer and Amazon Music. I don't subscribe to any of those, so they're no use to me. But one thing that is of use is TuneIn Radio, which not only allows you to pick up a load of internet radio stations, but also podcasts as well. And if you're in an area where you're getting a poor radio reception, or even if you don't want to attach a lot of antenna wires to the back, or if you find that the digital DAB radio station that you like is broadcasting at a very low bit rate on DAB radio, you might find that you're getting a better service if you use the internet radio station version instead. So the TuneIn Radio feature is a very handy one. Now, another thing it has is the ability to access media that's on your network, a shared media audio resource. Now, that's not something I'm really all that familiar with, as you can see from the way I'm stumbling over describing it, because in the past, yeah, I did have a shared music thing on the network once. I always found it incredibly flaky to use, slow, crashed out, all that kind of stuff. So I never really got involved in it at all. And I think over the years when I swapped out various computers, I lost that shared resource of my music folder somewhere. Anyway, once I got this thing, it does allow you to use that facility, and I thought I should really demonstrate it in the video. So I was going to set up a new thing, put a load of music on the network, on a hard drive somewhere, on a NAS or whatever. NAS, I'm saying it wrong. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I realised I've got the Sony HAPS-1, which is a little digital media player device, which also works as a network music server. It's already on my network, and it's just I've never really used it. So I just went into this. I went on the app, and I thought add a service, and it just found it straight away, picked it up, and all the music appeared in there, artwork, all the rest of it. Click on one, plays it on here. I mean, it works so easily. I've never seen it work that easily before. So yeah, I can now get access to all the music that's on my Sony hard disk drive music player that's in another room on this anywhere on the network. Now, it does have a little bit of a limitation. I've noticed the search facility doesn't work, and I think that is purely down to the way the Sony interacts with this rather than any problem at this end. If I got a regular NAS with a network music service on it, I'm sure it would work just fine. It's just the Sony one is a little bit, well, it's esoteric. But anyway, it all works. Everything works fine, and I was very surprised at that. So yeah, I've got all those different options for playing music. That's quite a lot of things. Oh, in addition to that, of course, we've got the auxiliary port on the back, so we can put perhaps a record player onto this. I don't know if I'd rest it on the top because this does get quite a bit of vibration, but just to demonstrate what that would look like, I'll show you a picture now. Now, of course, whenever you talk about a device that has an app, you have to think about what would happen if the app were to disappear. Would it render the device useless? In some cases it would. With this, there's still a lot of functionality here, even without the app. I'm not saying the app's going away anytime soon, but if it were to go away, you're just missing out on all that internet functionality. You've still got CD, radio, auxiliary input, Bluetooth, AirPlay. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that this can still do if you were to take away the app. I think what is more likely to happen with this device is something on it will break at some point before the app disappears. I think the CD laser's probably the most likely point of failure on this. I've noticed on a lot of devices that I've been playing around with in the last few years, that seems to be the thing that goes first. But then again, these vacuum fluorescent displays, they don't seem to have a great deal of longevity in them either. However, even if those two things were to go, you've still got AirPlay and Bluetooth functionality here, so it just works as a rather expensive Bluetooth speaker. Now, talking about the expense, when these things were out, these in the UK cost up to £700, which was a lot of money. And I think that might be where a lot of the resentment comes from this kind of hi-fi audiophile community, where they've got this thing out for Bose for some reason. I just think, look, if somebody wants to pay that amount of money for something, let them pay it. I do actually regret not looking at these when they were still out towards the end, because whilst they were discontinuing them, there were some good discounts on them, especially on the refurb models, discounts that you won't see any more of them. So yeah, they do hold their value, these things. But I don't think it was overpriced. I think it was a fair price for the quality that you get here. Yeah, I know people like to compare these things. They say, well, instead of getting that, you could have got this, and they mentioned like an amp and big floor standing speakers, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you could. Probably won't fit in the space that you wanted to put this in though. I mean, with these, I think a lot of them were the kind of thing that would have ended up in a study. I wish I had a study, because if I did, this would be in there. It's like a mini hi-fi system really, but all in one. You can't space the speakers out, but yet still, if you want something that goes in a nice neat space, has all the features of this one, I don't think you can find very much better than this at this price even now. It does look like a glorified alarm clock radio. Maybe that's where some people think these things are rubbish. It can function as an alarm clock radio. It's got 2 alarms on it, but no, it needs to go somewhere else. I don't think it replaces a massive hi-fi system, but equally, it's not like your little kitchen radio. It's somewhere in between. And for the people who wanted something like this, this was perfect for them. And if they're so rubbish, then people would have took them back again. They had that no quibble, money back guarantee type of thing. If you got one home from your visit to the designer outlet and played around with it and thought it sounded rubbish, yeah, just take it back, get all your money back. And my experience seems to be very different to the one of this online reviewer. Contrary to the negative points here, I found it very easy to use. The setup process was as simple as any I've encountered. The Wi-Fi connectivity has been totally glitch-free, and the mobile app is without doubt the most intuitive of any that I've used for an audio system, and I've tried plenty. And I don't recall seeing a more overwhelmingly positive feedback for an app of this sort. Perhaps it's just been improved since the review was published. Their last point of not liking the case design refers to this being a two-part system with the pedestal connected to the top via a cable. I can see where they're coming from, but a quick Google search would have revealed to them that the SoundTouch base was an expansion to an already existing device. And since my hi-fi consists of around 20 components wired together with a rat's nest of cables, I'm more than happy to put up with just the one interconnecting wire. The only criticism that I could level at the ease of use of the Bose is that a couple of the less frequently used functions, for example rescanning the radio stations, are concealed behind long button presses. In this case it's the mute button, but all these commands are clearly labelled in a manual, so if you're capable of reading, then this shouldn't be a problem either. But of course I'm not saying it's all perfect, nothing is, so let's go through a few of the negatives. Right, I'll just mention that for me these are just nitpicks, none of them are showstoppers, but for other people it might be more important, so I'll just lay them out here. The first one is that this device doesn't have any buttons on the main unit itself. It relies entirely on the remote control. I say entirely, it does have one touch panel on the top, and that just performs a simple function. If you tap it while the alarm's on, it will snooze the alarm. At the moment, whilst it's playing this CD, if I was to tap it, the device switches off. And then if I tap it again, it comes back on again, and it will carry on where it last left off. So whichever function I was last in, it'll just carry on doing that. But it would have been nice to have some more features on the main unit. I'd expect at least volume control and an eject button. Don't even have that. So whilst if the device is switched off, you put a CD in the slot, it wakes it up and starts playing the CD immediately. You can't eject that CD without having to go back to the remote control. The USB port on the back doesn't accept any audio files at all. It's really just for service. I think they were planning on adding some additional functionality to that, but it isn't for the end user. None of those to me are big issues. The only one that I would put any weight on whatsoever is the fact that the sound on this can't really be altered very much by the user. There's no EQs or any of that kind of business. All you can do is adjust the level of the bass, but you can't adjust the treble. Normally, that wouldn't be much of an issue. It's tuned exactly how I'd want to hear it for the majority of the time. The only time I noticed it was due to their own demo CD, because when there's classical music and there's strings going, for some reason that always reverberates in my head. I always find it a little bit harsh. And if I ever hear that on any of my other systems, I tend to just knock the treble down a couple of notches, and that takes the edge off it. Can't do that here. So yeah, certain kinds of music you might not enjoy if they've got that kind of high-pitched thing, or maybe it's just me. You know, overall, the sound quality from what I've listened to on this, I've been very happy with, and it's only down to their own demo CD that I even noticed that issue. With all my other CDs, all the music I've been playing through the radio and streaming and all the rest of it, I've been surprised by how good the quality is, especially considering how people tended to rubbish these things. Well, I don't know if they've ever listened to them, because as far as I'm concerned, this produces sound that belies its size. It's a much bigger sound than you'd expect from something like this. You look at it and then you turn it on and it's two different things. If you close your eyes, you'd imagine something more sort of this kind of size. When they say room-filling sound, it's not like surrounding you. You know it's coming from a thing over there, but still the stereo separation's much wider than it looks here with the two speakers. It tends to send things out further than the boundaries of the device itself. I like the bass on this. It's got a nice rich sound to it. One thing I've really noticed in particular is the clarity of it. It's incredibly clear, especially when it comes to vocals. Now this is all starting to sound a bit kind of beard stroking audiophile, but I was listening to some hip-hop music, stuff that I'm not particularly familiar with, but I've just got like on compilation CDs, and I started to pick out lyrics in these songs that I've never understood before. So I set it up in the lounge for the missus. I said, just have a listen to this, stream some music to it. So she got her phone out and she did some AirPlay stuff. I said, what do you think of that? She says, it's very clear, isn't it? And that's it. And then she spent the rest of the evening play music through. I mean, she hadn't been playing music for weeks, but she got this thing here and she was enjoying going through a library, listening to all these different things on it. And if that's not an advert for one of these, I don't know. I mean, just as your average person who isn't really all that into any of this stuff, couldn't care less about tech or hi-fi, she thought it sounded very nice and she enjoyed playing the music on it. So, you know, isn't that what a music player is all about after all? For a unit of this size, it punches way above its weight. Yes, it isn't the same as one of these, but it was never intended to be. It does the job that it's set out to do. I like the sound quality of this so much. I was interested in their smart speakers, which have also been discontinued. So I'm looking for a refurb one of those because I think I quite enjoy the sound quality from that. So yeah, I think this was a good product. If you ever get the chance to have a listen to one, give it a go. You might be pleasantly surprised. But anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.